Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. If you've got a management exam on the horizon, well, consider this your ultimate study guide. Think of it as your visual cheat sheet, carefully designed to lock in the absolute key definitions and theories you need to know. Today, we're talking about the very core of leadership. To give you a real-world hook right out of the gate, I want you to think about Accenture CEO Julie Sweet. When you look at her incredibly effective leadership style, it isn't about barking orders at people. Instead, it's characterized by humility, transparency, and a real commitment to continuous learning. Keep her in mind as the gold standard as we unpack what leadership truly means.
Okay, let's dive into this roadmap. We've got 5 key sections to cover today to get you exam ready. Core definitions, the 5 sources of managerial power, trait and behavior models, contingency models, and finally, transformational versus transactional leadership.
All right, starting us off, Section 1. Core definitions of leadership.
Get your digital highlighters ready, folks, because this sets the foundation for everything else. Here is your textbook definition. Leadership is the process by which a person exerts influence over others and inspires, motivates, and directs their activities to achieve group or organizational goals. Now, the absolute key exam takeaway here is that one single word, influence. Leadership isn't just about having the official authority to tell people what to do, right? It's the active process of exerting influence to inspire and direct a team toward a shared goal.
So, the crucial point is understanding the distinction between a manager and a leader. And trust me, exams love testing this exact comparison. Managers are intensely focused on establishing and implementing procedures to ensure smooth functioning. They're the ones keeping the trains running on time. Leaders, on the other hand, look to the future and chart the course for the entire organization. In short, managers maintain the present while leaders envision the future.
Moving right along to Section 2. 5 sources of managerial power. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that it's essentially a guaranteed multiple-choice topic, so pay close attention. Notice how that central node of power doesn't just come from one single place. It's like a puzzle fed by 5 distinct sources: expert, referent, reward, coercive, and legitimate. Effective managers understand that relying on just one of these arrows isn't enough. They have to combine them to truly influence their teams.
Let's quickly drill down into what each of those actually means so they really stick in your memory. First up, legitimate power. That's the authority you have simply by virtue of your position in the organizational hierarchy. Next is reward power, which is your ability to give tangible or intangible rewards. Then we have coercive power, the ability to punish. I want you to tie this directly in your mind to things like verbal reprimands, pay cuts, and dismissal. But yikes, definitely remember that overusing this one can lead to some pretty dangerous working conditions. Fourth is expert power, which is based on special knowledge or skills used to guide or coach. And finally, referent power. This one comes entirely from the respect, admiration, and loyalty of coworkers. When employees actively want to use their manager as a role model, that is referent power in action.
All right, Section 3, trait and behavior models.
This is where we start moving up the ladder of complexity. Honestly, go ahead and pause the explainer right now or just take a screenshot, because this table is your ultimate cheat sheet for the trait model. This model focuses heavily on identifying personal characteristics that produce effective leadership. Things like intelligence to understand complex issues and knowledge to make good decisions. You need dominance to influence subordinates and self-confidence to persist through obstacles. High energy helps deal with demands, while a tolerance for stress, that allows for difficult decisions during all those inevitable late-night crises. Finally, integrity and honesty are how you earn your subordinates' trust, and maturity helps you avoid selfishness and admit when you're wrong. Seriously, memorize this list.
Now, to transition from traits over to actual behaviors, let's look at a real-world example. Costco. Their code of ethics explicitly states, quote, "Take care of our employees." This is an incredible mental hook for you because by following this exact mantra, Costco ranks 17 out of 500 organizations on Forbes 2022 America's Best Large Employers list. That's huge. And that Costco quote, it is the absolute perfect real-world example of the first type of behavior in the behavioral model, consideration. Consideration means engaging in behavior that shows you genuinely trust, respect, and care about your employees. On the exact flip side of that coin is initiating structure. This is behavior a manager engages in to ensure work actually gets done, employees perform acceptably, and the organization runs efficiently. For your exam, remember that effective leaders typically have to balance both, caring for the people while also ensuring the work is completed.
Moving on to Section 4, contingency models in context.
Fair warning, guys. This is exactly where exam questions can get super tricky.
Why? Because leadership effectiveness is no longer a simple one-size-fits-all formula. Contingency models propose that the traits or behaviors making a manager an effective leader in one situation might actually result in that very same manager being completely ineffective in another context. Basically, context is everything, and you have to adapt.
And this brilliantly illustrates the most famous of these theories, Fiedler's contingency model. Don't let this matrix overwhelm you. I know, studying late at night makes charts look terrifying, but it simply maps out how favorable a situation is for leading. Fiedler argues that your core style, whether you're relationship-oriented or task-oriented, is fixed. So your effectiveness is entirely contingent on matching your style to the right situation. Task-oriented leaders thrive in very favorable or very unfavorable situations, so the extreme ends of the graph. Meanwhile, relationship-oriented leaders, they do best in those moderately favorable situations, right in the middle.
To actually read that matrix, Fiedler says you have to evaluate 3 specific variables to determine if a situation is favorable. You must memorize these 3 for the test. 1. Leader-member relations. Do the followers actually like and trust you? 2. Task structure. Is the work clear-cut or is it super vague? And 3. Position power. How much legitimate, reward, and coercive power do you actually hold in your position?
Before we leave contingency theories behind, I want to briefly touch on a really fascinating alternative, the leader substitutes model. This model argues that sometimes leadership is literally entirely unnecessary. Think about it. If your employees are highly skilled, experienced, and motivated, or if the work context itself is just incredibly interesting and fun, those factors actually substitute for traditional management influence. The team practically leads itself.
All right, the final stretch. Section 5, Transformational versus Transactional Leadership. This right here represents the gold standard of current management theory. You definitely need to be able to draw a stark contrast between these two for your exam. Transactional leaders motivate simply by rewarding high performance and reprimanding low performance. It's just classic carrots and sticks. But transformational leaders, they see the much bigger picture. While they might occasionally use transactional tools, their primary goal is to motivate workers to work for the good of the organization, not just personal gain, while simultaneously making employees aware of their own needs for personal growth and development.
Let's move on and see how this builds into specific, actionable behaviors. Transformational managers typically do 3 main things. First, they're charismatic. They are incredibly enthusiastic and they clearly communicate their vision. Second, they intellectually stimulate employees, pushing them to view old problems in entirely new ways. And third, they engage in developmental consideration, meaning they actively support and encourage employees to enhance their skills. Employees working under this kind of leadership usually experience much higher job satisfaction, incredible performance, and deep, lasting trust in their leaders.
To really lock all of this in right before your exam, I want to leave you with a quick challenge. Take a second and reflect on your own style, or think of a famous leader you know well. Based on the definitions we just covered today, are they highly transactional, operating mostly on rewards and punishments, or are they truly transformational? Applying these theories to a real person in your life is absolutely the best way to guarantee you'll remember it on test day. So, what do you think? Good luck with your studying, take a deep breath, and remember, you've totally got this.